Welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today as we continue on getting you ready for the upcoming Super Bowl. This is FST with Craig Mish, Joe Pisapia, Davis Maddock. We had Matt Stryker here for the first couple of hours, and we charge on all the way up until noon Eastern and more Super Bowl coverage coming your way. But guys, here we are, hours away from the big game in Las Vegas. And I think, Davis, what is really fascinating when you think about it, a lot of people watch this network for sports betting information. Let's be real. We do some fantasy content, but they do watch for sports betting content. And to think that just a few years ago, any of these props that we were reviewing, the only place that you could bet this legally was in Las Vegas. I mean, you clearly could go to the Bahamas or, do it somewhere overseas, which is, we're not encouraging that. I mean, there were ways to do this. But to think that this is so widely legal now, and they're saying that more money will be bet on this Super Bowl than ever in the history before. And again, more states are being legalized, so that does make sense. Pretty soon, we're going to have a world where we don't remember not being able to legally bet on the Super Bowl.
Oh, easily. Yeah. I mean, like so I have a brother-in-law who is 22 years old. He doesn't know. He doesn't know about any of the offshore illegal dumb stuff that never should have existed. He's like, yeah, I got 6 sports betting accounts. And when I want to get a bonus bet, I just log on to my favorite app and I have a bonus bet sitting there waiting for me. Craig, you know how I feel? I feel like one of those guys who's like, yeah, I walked uphill to school both ways in the snow, rain, sleet. Like, that's what I feel like trying to explain what sports betting was like when I was in college. It's just the thing that people do. Like, every guy I know my age, actually literally every guy I know my age has the ability to place a sports bet from their phone. Like, no problem.
Yeah, the world has certainly changed in that regard. Now, I'm from Brooklyn, so again, maybe the pathways were a little different for me. Maybe more options were open for me potentially in my youth, but no. To your point, Craig, I think this is the lens that we take in sports now, isn't it? I mean, it's been fantasy for years, and now wagering has been a part of it always, but now it's at the forefront as well. And the overlap has been enormous. And I think that's the thing on FST we've tried to show everybody, which is, hey, if you like fantasy and you've played fantasy your whole life, there's ways to go and attack the prop market like we're going to do in this hour here, looking at some of these props and some of these totals here potentially and what we think over under in terms of fantasy. It equates to wagering. So I think educating the fan base of fantasy into how they can continue to make money on their investments is a very wise thing. And we've seen it be very successful on FST all season long in the last few years also. So this is the right network. You're in the right place to make sure that you're maximizing your investments. And yeah, I think there will be a time very soon when, wagering on the NFL, again, people would say, what, you couldn't bet on the NFL? Just like on your phone? You couldn't do that? Just the way my kids don't know what a rotary phone is, and they don't know what I had explained to them what a video store was because I worked at one in college, and they were saying you had to actually go to get the movie and then bring it back to your house? That seems insane. And I said, no, that's how we planned out our whole weekend. So yes, times are changing, Craig.
Yeah, that was definitely my big Thursday night or Friday night or Saturday night. Just hoping that the video would be there at Blockbuster to take home. But David, speaking of blockbusters here, we're hoping for a good game. I think we've been disappointed in a lot of the big NFL games this season. I think that's fair to say. The primetime games did not live up to what we thought. The playoffs, I feel like, has been a tick up, a little bit better. Some people, have talked about, yes, there's been a few good games in the playoffs, but generally we're hyping them so much they end up being good games. But I feel like, and I think you feel the same, that in this day and age of the NFL, the spread doesn't always tell the story, but we've gotten so many close Super Bowls that have gone down to the wire recently. It feels like we're probably headed, I would think, for another one of those, because no matter how well the Chiefs play, the 49ers can come back. And no matter how well the 49ers play, no one's going to believe that the Chiefs are out of it. So I feel like there's a good shot we get like 3.5 good quarters no matter what. It just comes down to, are we going to get one of those with team with the ball, last possession wins?
So that's exactly what I was thinking while you were saying this, which is I feel like 60% of the time, the way this game plays out, there is going to be drama on the final possession, one way or the other, whether it be, the team, gets the ball back with 90 seconds left and they drive down and get the field goal, or a team, makes it like a costly decision, or there's a fourth quarter turnover. I don't think that this is going to be a game where it's 6 minutes into the third quarter and you're already like, well, I guess I got to get up early on Monday morning. Like, we're moving past it. I just really, I don't really think that is how it's going to, I would be very surprised one way or the other. Honestly, if I did have to say, if there was a blowout, likely the 49ers are more likely to blow up the Chiefs. The Chiefs are I think, very unlikely to blow out this 49ers team. It would kind of have to be like a huge meltdown on the side of the 49ers, I think, for there to be anything encroaching a blowout. And I'm hopeful for it. I mean, we want a good game. I'm not tuning into this game to see, and I also don't want, I was telling this to someone on the network yesterday, there definitely is a chance, I think, for this to be a Rams-Patriots style game where it's just like a lot of cagey, defensive, a lot of punts, a lot of field goals. I think that's more likely also than like a 47-45.
Yeah, if it does come down to that lateness too. Yeah, well, I was just thinking, you also got a rookie kicker in Jake Moody too, who's missed some big field goals. Like that to me is another piece you want to throw into the pile of question marks that I have about the 49ers. I know I've been the guy sitting here, Davis has his fandom. He puts it aside. He's a good businessman. I don't have any dog in this fight. I'm just looking at the tail of the tape here. Head coach, advantage Chiefs. Quarterback, advantage Chiefs. Defense, I still say advantage Chiefs, even though there's some issues there with the run game. If you like the 49ers to win this game, then go back Christian McCaffrey. But again, now you got to go talk about the kickers too. I mean, Jake Moody, rookie kicker in a big spot in the Super Bowl. This is not Evan McPherson here. It's not the same dude. So I don't get this whole thing where I keep looking at them as being this clear-cut favorite in this game. To Davis's point, yeah, the outcome does exist that if there is going to be a blowout, it's more likely probably a blowout where the 49ers just come out with a vengeance and all these weapons and they just can't stop them. They can't figure out what they're trying to do. But that certainly, anything towards the other side where it's an under, I think greatly favors the Chiefs winning this football game, because Spagnuolo is a guy that has shown you time and time again he is going to be prepared. He is going to show you some difficult blitz schemes. He's going to confuse young quarterbacks. I mean, look, this is the guy that beat Tom Brady twice. Let's not forget that, the Super Bowl. A lot of people who could say that. Spags has done a fantastic job over the years of having a great game plan for these big games. You saw them stuff Trevor Lawrence into a sack last year in the playoffs. You saw them do a lot of great things in the playoffs in recent years too, even Joe Burrow too. Like, you are in the hands of a very capable defensive coordinator. I think at the end of the day, if it does become a defensive struggle of any kind, that greatly favors the Chiefs winning this football game.
Yeah, look, I think all the points are fair on all sides. It's a game of inches. It's a game of plays. We forget that 3 weeks ago, the Buffalo Bills were basically one play away from being in this spot with the Chiefs being out. I mean, it's just, to me, is going to be a great game. I got no pick. I have no idea who's going to win this game. I will have my favorite play in the game coming up a little bit later. We're going to take a look at all the Super Bowl props coming up next, as Davis, Joe, and myself will run through them. So stay with us here on SportsGrid. More Super Bowl coverage on Fantasy Sports Today.
.47 is one of the hardest numbers to beat, period, for an NFL football game. A lot of combinations that can fall 47. You decide. Of course, you're getting great two-way action. That's what you want as the book. You don't have to move the number. Right. Biggest game of the year is the easiest game to book in the world.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Super Bowl is set in Vegas. We get a rematch from just a few years ago.
The only consistency in the playoffs has been Travis Kelce.
Brock Purdy, back-to-back weeks throwing one touchdown pass, right? You can't win MVP with one touchdown pass. I hate the Chiefs. but I bet on them.
This is going to be a game that is played inside a field goal now from a spread perspective.
All that matters is there's one game left, the big game.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Scoring 19.7 points per game, 13.1 rebounds, and 8.2 assists. How can a center that is top 50 in scoring, first in rebounding, 7th in assists, and 8th in field goal percentage not make the All-Star team? That is such a huge snub for Domantas Sabonis.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
0 points scored in the fourth quarter of that Falcons Super Bowl, and the Niners were shut out.
Yep.
So in the two biggest games of the two Super Bowls, one as a coordinator, one as a head coach, he hasn't scored a single point in the fourth quarter. I tell you what, if they don't, on Sunday, they're not winning the game, bro.
Exactly.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Millions and millions of prop bets, more than you could ever ask for, available FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, Las Vegas, everywhere. And so we thought we would take this opportunity to review some of them, especially some of the bigger names, to see if we have any positions going into the game this afternoon. So let's get started and take a look, gentlemen, at Patrick Mahomes, the starting quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs, who certainly has risen his game in these playoffs, especially in the first half of some of these playoff games. And then the Chiefs have been able to just sort of hang on with their defense. But his passing total is 262.5. And Davis, if this was 2022 or 21 or 20, you would just hit the smash button on the over. But it's not the way the Chiefs are playing right now. You know, like the number seems fair, probably a little bit higher than it's been actually over the course of the season. And look, playoff Mahomes is honestly as good as regular season Mahomes. It's just a different way that the Chiefs play. So I don't certainly think this is a slam dunk by any means. And my guess is, Davis, if the Chiefs win, this is definitely not a guarantee that he goes over this.
That's what I think is so interesting. You know, in years past, you'd say him going over is like a really positive indicator that they won the game. It meant they were efficient. It meant that they had a couple explosive plays. Someone scored a 60-yard touchdown. I think you could actually make an argument that Mahomes going over would maybe even correlate with the Chiefs' loss, or at least a game where they were losing for a good chunk of it, because the best Chiefs games this season have been ones where they've been able to run the ball really efficiently and long drives, right? That's, I think, been the huge difference between the Chiefs this postseason versus what they were doing in the regular season is they get the ball, you know, there's 10 minutes left in the third quarter, and all of a sudden you look up and they're going into the fourth quarter, and with the Chiefs just had the ball for 9 minutes and 30 seconds of game time and just came away with a field goal. And I saw someone, I wish I remembered the name, someone on social media pointed this out, but the biggest difference has been the drops. There's been no drops, or Valdez-Scantling had one that was really bad in the Dolphins game, but that's been it. And if you don't have drops, so like you just have the quarterback hitting the receiver in the hands and they just catch it and come down with it, that keeps the clock moving, that keeps the chains moving. And if you're using the passing game as an extension of the running game, which is what the Chiefs are doing, you know, lots of screen passes to Rashee Rice, lots of throws out of the backfield to Pacheco and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Maybe McKinnon is able to play this game. I, in my personal wagering, of which I have done a lot of wagering for this game, I've not taken a stance on this one outside of the same game parlays, you know, just trying to find a good correlation here or there. I would probably lean under, given how I think this game goes. I think it is going to be more kind of a time of possession, grinded out style game, but I don't feel confident enough in that to make like an official selection.
He's only gone over this number 7 times all year, and that's including the playoffs. Sticking with the narrative of the Chiefs winning this game, I think if they're in control of this game, you don't have to push the football as much. So I'm going to go under. I think he's still probably in that 240 to 255 range, but this is a pretty hefty number, especially when you consider all the drops that have been present. Now, good luck because Kadarius Toney's not in this game, so we can take his drops out of this equation. Not that they should be looking for him and targeting him anyway. But still, I think when you're looking at this number, that's a high number for what this offense has become, which is run the football with Pacheco, continue to get Travis Kelce involved. You're going to pepper him with targets. Rashee Rice is going to get his targets. But, outside of the occasional big play to MVS, that explosiveness that used to be around when the Patrick Mahomes Tyreek Hill combination was present is not the case anymore. This is not that team. It's a different team. I think they figured out who they are and the best way to utilize their pieces. And I think that makes them dangerous because all year was kind of learning their new identity of what this Chiefs team is. And it's playing defense and Mahomes making good plays when he has to, but not the 350-yard prolific Mahomes that we're used to seeing back in the day. And back in the day, I mean, like 2 years ago. But still, to me, this is going to be an under as well with Davis.
All right, so under there on Mahomes. Now, I have a feeling, I know which way Davis has got to go here because Davis is one of his favorite prop plays was over on Patrick Mahomes' rushing yards, and his total is 26.5. Davis. Now, look, obviously, if you like that prop, it doesn't necessarily have to correlate to it because, as you brought up, if you think the Chiefs are going to win and they have a lead late, he could take a knee or two, and that counts as a rushing attempt. But Davis, I don't know how you could go under on this and like the over on the attempts. They're not guaranteed to be correlated, but I don't think that you can win both those bets. Is that possible?
Yeah, I think that is accurate. So I would go over here, but I am letting everyone know that you are opening yourself up to the bad beat of all bad beats, which we literally in this game, in the 2020 Super Bowl, we literally watched this happen. I think Mahomes was at 34 rushing yards, if my memory serves me correctly. And on the final possession, it was just because of the way the clock was. I don't remember exactly why they did it, but Mahomes ran backward for 16 yards on 2 consecutive kneel downs. So he rolled around in the pocket a little bit and then kneeled down, and then he did it again, I think because they needed to burn a little bit of extra clock to get the clock to double zeros. So he ended up with, I think, 16 rushing yards off the top of my head and ended up going under his prop that he had smoked over. But as I've illustrated before, the 49ers are not going to be blitzing in this game. And they're not going to be blitzing because they're going to try and keep the middle of the field absolutely packed with defenders to make Mahomes throw outside the hashes, which has been more difficult with this group of wide receivers. And we've all seen this movie a million times. You give Mahomes too much time in the pocket, he dips the shoulder, he moves around the defensive end, and he runs for 8 yards and he gets out of bounds, and the defender has to pull up to avoid trying to get a late hit penalty on him because we know those flags are coming here in this spot if you hit Pat when he's out of bounds. So I am going over on Mahomes' rushing yardage prop.
2 for 2.
Joe?
I'm over as well. Yeah, I can't not go with this one for all the reasons that Davis laid out, so I won't piggyback too much on there. But it's as simple as that. Mahomes is going to, if you don't put pressure on him and you're going to take away the receivers, and he is going to find a way to make plays with his legs. So it's going to be a very dangerous long day at the office if they do that. Either way, to me, you got to pressure Mahomes in order to beat him. I don't think this is a successful strategy, for beating the Chiefs. So I think this is the way they're going to approach it, but I think it's going to fall short. So I'm in the over on this one as well.
All right, now let's move over to running back Isaiah Pacheco, who has seen his rushing totals climb over on FanDuel and DraftKings this week. It is at 65.5 going into the Super Bowl. And interestingly enough, his longest rush, I believe I saw on FanDuel, was 15.5. So I feel like that's kind of correlated too. I think he may need to hit that to go over that total. But fellas, it's just one of those dynamics where Pacheco has become a major part of the offense. I don't think, even going into the season, I don't know that people would have thought he would have this kind of impact. But Joe, do you like Pacheco to have a big game on the ground this week?
I do. I think this is going to go over, maybe not by much. I think he's going to get into that 70s range, maybe even top 80. But I do think it's the over here. And because I think this is what their identity is. As I said, run the football, play defense, let Patrick Mahomes be Patrick Mahomes. Davis, I don't know what you think about this one, but I think that to me, it's clearly an over. In fact, I feel pretty good about this one.
Yeah, I feel very good about it as well. The 49ers run defense, their pass defense is still quite good. Their run defense not as good as it has been in years past. And it does feel weird to say this about, the Reed Mahomes Chiefs, but Pacheco has been a real bellwether of how good the offense can be. Like they kind of need him to get to this number to stay competitive. I feel very badly about the Chiefs' chances of winning this game if Pacheco can't get it going on the ground. I think, 17 rushing attempts or so is what his projection should be. And I think, one long run, you get a 22-yarder, you get around the edge, and that sets you up pretty well to get over this number. So I'm taking a slight over here on Pacheco rushing attempts as well.
All right, we continue our look at props coming up after this short timeout. So make sure you stay with us here on SportsGrid. This is Fantasy Sports Today. Arguably the most popular player playing in the Super Bowl is going to be Travis Kelce this week. And if you want to go over on his receptions and his yards, folks, I got to be honest with you, you're paying the ultimate price this week because they have priced this guy up to make sure they don't get beat. Joe and I and Davis will record that. We'll discuss it coming up next. So stay with us here on Fantasy Sports Today as we're back after this quick break. Don't go away.
.47 is one of the hardest numbers to beat, period, for an NFL football game. A lot of combinations that can fall 47. You decide. Of course, you're getting great two-way action. That's what you want as the book. You don't have to move the number. Right. Biggest game of the year is the easiest game to book in the world.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Super Bowl is set in Vegas. We get a rematch from just a few years ago.
The only consistency in the playoffs has been Travis Kelce.
Brock Purdy, back-to-back weeks throwing one touchdown pass, right? You can't win MVP with one touchdown pass. I hate the Chiefs, but I bet on them.
This is going to be a game that is played inside a field goal now from a spread perspective.
All that matters is there's one game left, the big game.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Scoring 19.7 points per game, 13.1 rebounds, and 8.2 assists. How can a center that is top 50 in scoring, first in rebounding, 7th in assists, and 8th in field goal percentage not make the All-Star team? That is such a huge snub for Domantas Sabonis.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
0 points scored in the fourth quarter of that Falcons Super Bowl, and the Niners were shut out.
Yep.
So in the two biggest games of the two Super Bowls, one as a coordinator, one as a head coach, he hasn't scored a single point in the fourth quarter. I tell you what, if they don't, on Sunday, they're not winning the game, bro.
Exactly.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
We definitely have a different element to the Super Bowl with all of the discussion around Taylor Swift. We generally haven't seen anything like this in a long time. There's always like side stories to the Super Bowl, but this is just such a popular person in the universe that it has really put a lot of focus on things that are not football, and a lot of non-football people will be watching the game, which, by the way, I don't even know why there's a debate as to whether or not this is good or bad for anything. I can't understand why anybody would think this is bad, but I guess people are just miserable with their lives out there. But needless to say, the performance of Travis Kelce in the AFC Championship game, I think, has altered some of the thinking here. And, Joe, I don't think there's any swift effect on sports betting. I do not think so, and I don't believe that to be the case. I do think that this is performance-based, but the books now do have to protect themselves against an element of popularity with a position at the tight end position, which you generally don't see. His total is 72.5 receiving yards. If this was the regular season, Joe, of the NFL, this may be my favorite bet on the board to go under, because this guy just didn't do anything like the whole year. But now all of a sudden it's playoff time, and like maybe Rob Gronkowski in a way, it does feel like it's kind of Kelce time too.
Well, let's not forget he started off the year hurt. Okay, like I don't think Travis Kelce was really right most of the season physically, and it didn't help that there weren't a lot of other players stepping up in that void. In fact, it really was to his detriment. All the drops, all the poor wide receiver play that the Kansas City Chiefs unfortunately had most of the regular season until Rashee Rice really sort of emerged in the last 7 or 8 games. But I gotta say, this one feels like an over to me too. He is a guy that shows up in the big spotlight. He looks healthier, that's for sure, I would think, in the playoffs, and we've seen a version of him all season long. And he has a sense of the history of what he's doing here. And I think when you start to mention the names like Jerry Rice and some of these records that he is approaching and breaking, I think it's really important. I think it's something that is not lost on these players. He is the go-to guy. He is that big piece of the offense that you can rely on. And I think today, the receptions for me with the over is really intriguing, but I'm always the guy that prefers to go for the yardage instead, because remember, the yardage is the easier one to obtain. One big play gets you that yardage number almost locked up. If he has a big 30-yard catch, guess what? That's going to put him in a great position to go over. You never know. The 7 seems right about right for the number of receptions, so give me the yardage instead over these 2. I think I prefer that in the over. If I was going to go with the receptions, I'd lean on the over too, but I prefer the yardage to the receptions on this. Davis, where do you stand when it comes to Kelce's props today?
I like them both. Again, just thinking like, what is the logical way for the Chiefs game plan? I got a crazy stat for you guys here. Almost no one in the NFL has been worse against the blitz this season than Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, before in his career, he'd been one of the best quarterbacks against the blitz. What has changed? Well, the first thing is, as Joe said, Kelce really was not healthy, and I think the 2-week break off here has been big for him. But they just have a bunch of crappy wide receivers, so a lot of the times against the blitz, Mahomes has to scramble. He's got to get rid of the ball. They've just been very inefficient in those spots. And I think one of the things that Andy Reid will have dialed up is a lot of quick stuff to all 3 of the tight ends for the Chiefs, Bell, Gray, and Kelce. I think it'll be I think Mahomes might, he might get up there in attempts, even if the yards are not that high, just as an extension of the running game. And another thing I will tell you is no one is going to be rooting against Travis Kelce more than the owners and operators of sportsbooks across this great country. Because if Travis Kelce scores the first touchdown of this game and goes over both his receiving yardage and his receiving receptions, props, I mean, those are far and away. Craig, everyone I know, and obviously, I'm a Chiefs fan. My buddies are Chiefs fans. This is what everyone has. Everyone's got Kelce first touchdown, Kelce anytime touchdown, Kelce over receptions, Kelce over yards, alternate, it's all Kelce for MVP. I will tell you that sportsbooks, the Chiefs win, I think, would be fine with them. They don't really care because they get to bet every game plus 110 both sides, but they do not want to be paying out everyone a nice steak dinner on Travis Kelce. I guarantee it.
Well, look, his props are the highest they've been all season long going into this game in the Super Bowl, so maybe there's a reason for that. Let's finish with the Chiefs here and talk about Rashee Rice at wide receiver, probably the most capable receiver. His total is 69.5, and his receptions are 6.5. And Davis, I'll go back to you to start this one. Look, it's fascinating to see Kelsey's number and Rice's number, because all of the other Chiefs receiving numbers are so low. Watson, Scantling, it's just like all they have to do is, it's like they're begging you to take those other guys. I don't know, man. I think all those other guys are going under. I think that right now Mahomes trusts Kelsey. He trusts Rice. And yeah, I mean, Scantling caught that ball at the end of the game. But let's be honest, if that doesn't happen, he's a 0 in that game. And Watson is a 0 in that game. But you can see the temptation to take some of those others. But I think it's fool's gold.
Yeah, I mean, look, and I'm the guy buying the fool's gold on Noah Gray and on Justin Watson. I've got them spelled in a little bit there. Gray's actually been awesome in the playoffs, and he's just out there all the time. Like I think the Noah Gray thing is, it's like the Chiefs don't really want to use him, but he plays about 60% of their offensive snaps, and his yardage stuff is like pretty low. I think it's 13 and a half. He's been over that twice already in these playoffs. Not that it's like a gold star lock or anything. I'm just looking to get some more action in on these games. A lot of how you feel about these props really just does come down to how do you think the 49ers defend the Chiefs? Because you can't take away Kelsey and Rice every snap. So you kind of have to decide who is going to be the defensive point of emphasis here. Feels crazy to say this, Joe. I kind of think it's Rice. I think Rice is the one that you do a more concerted effort to take away, because he's way more dangerous after the catch than Kelsey is at this stage of his career. Kelsey is still going to be, you cannot stop him from getting open. He and Mahomes just have that, Vulcan mind meld connection where they can just find each other through time and space. It's like, it's unbelievable, the connection that these guys have. But once Travis gets the ball, he's 34, man. He's not running that hard.
No, I don't disagree with you. In fact, that's why I want to pivot off of this to Rashee Rice anytime touchdown score at plus money at plus 145. Because I think if you are going to make an investment in Rice today, you make the investment on Rice in the red zone, because that's where he's been so good. And Mahomes has looked for him so often. I mean, he has been money in the bank there every single week, it feels like, since he really has come on. And so to me, I think that's personally where I'm looking for Rice. I think he can return that potentially today. So I would fade both of these numbers in favor of the anytime touchdown, because I think Rice does get in the end zone today.
All right. So, and by the way, as far as like the Chiefs, before we end on the Chiefs, we're going to go to the 49ers in the next 15 minutes and talk about all their props. Either of you guys like anything in particular that we haven't covered? I feel like, maybe not.
I got a
Chiefs side. I've got one
for you.
Hold on.
I've got a vomit inducing. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. Clyde Edwards-Helaire over 5.5 receiving yards. So this is obviously presuming that Jerick McKinnon does not play, which I don't think he will. Right. He is going to be questionable up until the game, 90 minutes out. But Clyde has gotten one target in every one of their playoff games. He averages 8.6 yards per reception for his career. It's a vomit inducer. I told you it's not comfortable. You really just need one good, 3rd and 13 screen pass to Clyde. He gets 9 yards. The Chiefs punt it away. But that is one of my pet project bets here for the Chiefs.
One of mine is Travis Kelce, 25 plus receiving yards in each half, and you can get this at plus money over on FanDuel as a special. Which again, the consistency of Travis Kelce in this offense, as Davis alluded to me makes a lot of sense. I mean, you're getting plus money, number one. It's on Travis Kelce. It's a yardage prop, which I prefer over the reception. So all of those perfect things. Like, do we think Kelsey's not going to be involved in this offense in both halves of this game, no matter what the score is? That would be a fictitious thing for me. So I like that one a lot. Plus 110 FanDuel, 25 yards plus receiving in both the first and second half. I like that one a lot when it comes to the Chiefs.
Yeah. I mean, the only one that like kind of struck me and sort of going back to what I was discussing on the Chiefs with Kelsey and Rice was I don't think Valdes-Scantling is going to play a factor at all in this game. Like, the guy has had one catch like in forever. It was a huge catch. I get it. But so much has to go right for that guy to catch a ball. like Mahomes has got to throw it. He's got to be running down the field. He's got to be able to catch it. There's no pass interference. He doesn't drop the ball. Or it's got to be in a game-clinching situation like it was in the AFC Championship. So for me, I'm going to go under on his receiving yards because, again, it may not – I mean, he may only have one catch for 11 yards. If that happens, it's an under. He may have 0. So, that's kind of the direction that I was going there. Okay, so before we get to the 49ers, let's do the official Super Bowl plans. What do you got, Joe? What's happening today in the Pizza Pia household? Is it a home game for you today? Is it a road game? Is it the recipes? You got the recipe book out today, or are you ordering food? What's the deal here?
I told you, it's the Krispy Kreme donut fundraiser in our local high school. They do it every year now on Super Bowl Sunday. So we'll get a couple dozen of those bad boys. Going to do some pulled pork in the slow cooker, maybe some tacos, maybe some sliders. We'll see how the mood strikes. Davis, how about you? You got the food set up, ready to go?
Yeah, I got the Wingstop order ready to go. I going over to my in-laws. I was like, I don't really want to cook. I'm not trying to set up, the brie and coot. If my wife wants to make something, she is more than happy to do so. But I will be rolling up with a huge pack of Wingstop wings.
There you go. Sounds like a good pizza day for me. They made fun of me for saying that a good chicken parm would be good for me on Super Bowl Sunday. I said that on the early line. I'm like, what's wrong with that? Why wouldn't you want to eat your favorite food on the day of your favorite game? I don't know. I guess I'm just of a different breed when it comes to that. Okay, coming up next, the San Francisco 49ers, some major offensive numbers here over on FanDuel with their props. We're going to review those next here on Fantasy Sports today.
.47 is one of the hardest numbers to beat, period, for an NFL football game. A lot of combinations that can fall 47. You decide. Of course, you're getting great two-way action. That's what you want as the book. You don't have to move the number. Right. Biggest game of the year is the easiest game to book in the world.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Super Bowl is set in Vegas. We get a rematch from just a few years ago.
The only consistency in the playoffs has been Travis Kelce.
Brock Purdy, back-to-back weeks throwing one touchdown pass, right? You can't win MVP with one touchdown pass. I hate the Chiefs, but I bet on them.
This is going to be a game that is played inside a field goal now from a spread perspective.
All that matters is there's one game left, the big game.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Scoring 19.7 points per game, 13.1 rebounds, and 8.2 assists. How can a center that is top 50 in scoring, first in rebounding, 7th in assists, and 8th in field goal percentage not make the All-Star team? That is such a huge snub for Domantas Sabonis.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
0 points scored in the fourth quarter of that Falcons Super Bowl, and the Niners were shut out.
Yep.
So in the two biggest games of the two Super Bowls, one is the coordinator, one is the head coach, he hasn't scored a single point in the fourth quarter. And I tell you what, if they don't, on Sunday, they're not winning the game, bro.
Exactly.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Well, the 49ers are favored in the Super Bowl. They've arguably been the NFL's best team throughout the entire NFL season. And so, therefore, there's a lot of high expectations as far as offense in this game. Now, the total is 47.5, maybe 47 in some spots, just depending on, where you're betting these things. But naturally, if the 49ers are going to win, it's a little bit of a different dynamic than it is with the Kansas City Chiefs because they have so many weapons. You could see a big Kittle game, a big Debo game, a big Ayuk game, a bigger McCaffrey game. We know he's going to have a big game no matter what. You could see a bigger McCaffrey game. But Brock Purdy is really the one that is a little bit of a wild card as far as the quarterback position is concerned. You would think if the 49ers win that Purdy would have to have a big game, but, it could be McCaffrey, could be Debo running ball, could be the defense of the 49ers. Now, Purdy, Davis, his total is 242.5 for his passing yards going into the game. Most of the big games the 49ers have won, he has flown over this number. Do you think that has to be correlated for Purdy to win as opposed to Mahomes, where if he went over, you could see a scenario where the Chiefs lose?
Very, very hard for me to see that exact scenario. I think the most likely scenario for this game is that Purdy probably does go under. Now, there are two scenarios where he gets over this and it's like he does it in like the third quarter and you are basically just like, oh, well, that was the easiest money I've ever made. And it's very long George Kittle play, very long Debo Samuel play. He does the pop pass to Debo Samuel. Debo rounds the edge. There's no safety there. Boom, he's gone. Debo 70 yards, right? And that is why with Purdy specifically, and really just any kind of Shanahan offensive quarterback, betting unders on them for efficiency stuff is like so frustrating. Like I'll bet a Purdy under completions, under passing attempts. I'll do that no problem because my incentives are aligned with the 49ers. The 49ers do not want Purdy to throw the ball 40 times in this game. I guarantee you that. But man, it's just so easy for him to go over. I think I'm going to side with the under here again, because I kind of think that's how the 49ers would prefer to play the game. And that's also how the Chiefs would prefer to play the game. But it is one of those wagers where it makes you sick to your stomach every time you see, George Kittle gets past the linebacking crew and you're like, I don't know, that could be an 80-yard touchdown if Purdy looks the safety off the right way.
Yeah, I'm in lockstep there with Davis. This one, I'm stay away from me personally because I'm so concerned about the yards after catch that this team is capable of. McCaffrey, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, like all of them are capable of that. And it's not on Purdy, it's on those guys. So to me, it's a stay away. It's funny, he went over this number twice in the playoffs already. And both of those games, you could argue they should have lost. So correlations can be thrown out the window because it's just so volatile because of the pieces. So this is a hard stay away for me. If anything, maybe the over regardless. If I had to lean, just because it seems like that's the route things go, is hovering around this number. So it'd probably go over. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's a win or a loss for this team. So Purdy's not the one that I'm tying my wagon to today.
All right. Now, Christian McCaffrey, of course, a lot of people online love the multiple touchdown bets with McCaffrey today. It just seems like he gets that second down opportunity every time near the goal line. Sometimes first down, but a lot of times Debo Samuel is taking that first and goal, and then McCaffrey punches it in the end zone. Now, his rushing total in this game is 92.5 yards, and 4.5 receptions is his receiving number there as well. Now, look, with McCaffrey, Joe, you would think that no matter what, some numbers are going to fly over for him today. Either his receiving number, his receptions number, his touchdowns number, not all of them are going to hit, but some of them are going to fly over. Have you identified which of those you think they are? It doesn't necessarily have to be the rushing yards or the receiving yards, but I can't imagine a scenario, barring some catastrophe, that McCaffrey doesn't do something significant today. Like honestly, Joe, he could have 60 rushing yards. He may score 4 times, this is the main player on the team.
Range of outcomes is great when it comes to Christian McCaffrey. If anything, I'd lean towards the over on this number. I think he's going to get close to 100 because to me, this is how you attack the Kansas City Chiefs, is run the football. Now, the problem here that lies is Kyle Shanahan often thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. Sometimes he is, sometimes he's not. And I think that gets him in trouble. If he gets away from running the football, I think it's going to be to their detriment. I think you should continue to pound the rock with McCaffrey, but I'm not sold that at some point Shanahan doesn't abandon that for something more stylistically pleasing. To me, my favorite McCaffrey bet, if I'm going to have one, is none of these. It's actually McCaffrey first-time touchdown scorer at plus 330, because I do think if they win the coin toss, they are going to be locked and loaded exactly what they want to do in that first drive, how they want to attack things, and I think it really ends up in a good spot potentially for Christian McCaffrey. So you could get that more than 3-1 return on your investment right there. Don't worry about the multiple touchdowns. The anytime is far too juiced. Instead, look for that first-time touchdown at 3-1. That might be the best bang for your buck. Davis, what do you think about the CMC props today?
My favorite CMC prop, actually, Craig highlighted it, which is that he could have 60 rushing yards, really not impact the game that much as a rusher, but still kill you. And I think the right way to angle that is either the over on his receptions or preferably the over on his receiving yards. Over 33.5 receiving yards, you can get that. It's pretty widely available. It should be close to minus 115 for the over. That is the side that I like the most with him. I think that, one, he obviously can get it done on one play. That was something you highlighted earlier about doing the receiving yards, and it's something that I love doing about them too. But really, it's just that I think the 49ers' best chance of keeping on schedule in this game is actually a lot of McCaffrey receptions as opposed to rush attempts. I think that's probably their best way to march down the field.
All right. Now, the one player that we can discuss here that I would throw out this prediction. This is my prediction on George Kittle, who we're about to talk about. I think, gentlemen, we're going to know if George Kittle is going over his props after the first half. This is the one player that I think you're going to know. He could have 60 yards in the first half, and that's the end. He could have 0, and that's probably the end, too. I think you're going to know in the first half his story. 46.5 receiving yards. This is not going to be close, I don't think, guys, one way or the other. Either he's going to have 100 or he ain't going to do nothing. 3.5 receptions, my gosh, does that seem low for this player? But again, if you look at the course of the season, he's had some complete duds, 2 for 17. And on the other hand, he's got 6 for 150. I mean, Joe, I don't know how you can have a strong opinion on this guy here. You certainly could take your shot, but he's a big part of their blocking, and he's not always a part of their receiving.
He is a great player, but he's a very difficult player to invest in. I don't like investing in Kittle for all the reasons you just laid out. It is all or nothing. And to me, that's a very dangerous thing. You're flipping a coin. I don't want to do that. There's far better wagers on the board than anything involving George Kittle, because he's capable of breaking this game, and he's capable of doing absolutely nothing and having 2 catches for 25 yards. And that range of outcomes is just far too much for me. So this is a hard pass. I'd rather be looking at some of the CMC props. I'd rather honestly be looking at the 49ers to get a field goal again in that first drive. I keep talking about that first drive. I think they're going to be ready. The Shanahan offense is going to be a well-oiled machine in that first drive. They're probably going to get points, whether it be a CMC touchdown, but you're getting plus 400 in a lot of spots for that first field goal on that first drive for the 49ers. That kind of stuff, I'm much more interested in a bigger return than trying to thread the needle with a guy that's impossible to gauge. But Davis, maybe you feel differently when it comes to George Kittle's props.
I think the right way to do Kittle, basically according to what Craig said, is to do alt lines. Kittle is not a guy who approaches his median all that often. Real difference between median and mean there. Sure, you can get 6 different outcomes from him and arrive at 55.5 yards on 3.5 receptions. But really, the right way to approach it would be George Kittle alternate, over 110 yards, over 5.5 receptions, or look, if you really want to get into the DGen space, over his alternate receiving yards and under on his receptions, right? So you create the thread the needle. The books give you a nice little boost on that. That's definitely gambling. That is not, that is not science. That is not a well thought out wager. It's definitely gambling, but it is kind of a fun way to sweat out some of these games. You can add an anytime touchdown in there as well. That is how that's how I've approached Kittle for this game, is all alternate stuff one way or the other, nothing about his median projection.
I didn't realize science would be on this show, but here we go. We're doing science on the program. We need Bill Nye to pop in at some point too. Okay, the wide receivers for the San Francisco 49ers, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. Let's hit those. We got about 10 minutes in the show, so we're short on time. We got 59.5 yards for Deebo Samuel receiving, 4.5 receptions. These seem pretty fair to me. Could probably, I would say, well eclipse the 59.5, but we're going to get to Brandon Ayuk. And it's just unlikely, gentlemen, that both players would go over this total. It would seem that one would. Davis, we'll start with you on Deebo Samuel.
Deebo, easy over 79.5 combo yards, 2 touchdowns. You can get him at 9-1. Can parlay those. I'm on Deebo for MVP, all that stuff. I think he's the most mispriced player in this game. He is, other than McCaffrey, the most impactful 49ers player. But I'm on the Ayuk unders. He's gonna be in Snead prison. And I mean, I did the Deebo propaganda earlier in the show. Like, I'm a Deebo guy. I am not a Brandon Ayuk guy. So I'm on the under for Ayuk, over for all of Deebo stuff.
Yeah, when it comes to this one, it's trickier. I think the explosiveness as Deebo is obviously something you have to account for. That explosiveness is very key to going over. However, he has gone under this mark in 5 of his last 6 games, and the last one he went over was actually the last game he played. So a tricky one where he actually didn't even finish that game. So just like George Kittle, the explosiveness is there, the game-breaking ability is there, but it's hard to invest in because it is all over the place. I think that Spags defense is going to give Brock Purdy a lot of trouble. So I'm staying away from the receivers. I'm focusing on Christian McCaffrey when it comes to him winning this football game for the 49ers. I think that is the path to victory. It's on the shoulders of CMC. It's not on the shoulders of anybody else in this offense, in my opinion. But certainly Brock Purdy has shown you he's capable of making big plays and capable of coming out after bad first halves and having good second halves. So from a live betting standpoint, really watch this game closely and see how these numbers start to move for the second half. Because if Purdy doesn't look good in the first half and they make good adjustments, we've seen that in the last 2 games where Purdy came out much better in the second half and did make those plays. So you could even chop these in half and start to look for the overs in just those second halves live, which obviously here on SportsGrid we'll be able to help you out with as well.
Do you guys watch the entire halftime show no matter what? You locked in no matter
when
what?
When Shakira is on, I watch the entire halftime show no matter what, Craig. I am willing to make that sacrifice for the good of football to make sure that I'm watching it. I will watch the halftime show with Usher. The halftime shows for the most part are very entertaining. Prince is still the 1-1. I don't know if you guys want to fight about that. To me, it's Prince and everybody else. But yeah, I mean, typically they've been pretty good. Davis, are you excited about Usher? Are you going to do a little dancing there at halftime?
No, I'm generally speaking. Except the thing is now, I've realized, guys, I've now aged into the age group that I'm targeted for. It's there. They always go for the boomer nostalgia, and I'm now of the age where the halftime show is boomer nostalgia for me, which is, it's a little bit of a humbling thing to realize that I've aged into that category.
I want to give that a Lil Jon. Yeah, welcome to the club, buddy. Welcome to the club. Craig Mish and I've been there for a while, I think.
When was the one they did with Dr. Dre and Snoop? Was that last year or 2 years ago?
No,
that
last year was
Bengals
Rihanna.
Ravens or Bengals Rams. 2021.
Yeah, that was Bengals Rams. Okay.
Years
ago. I mean that one I watched
good.
the whole thing, but I was at the Prince one, so I did see that one in person.
I'm jealous of that.
Cool.
I'm jealous of that.
If
I was at the Shakira one, I'd be very happy. That's the one I want to see.
All right, I'm going to give you the team that's going to lose the Super Bowl next, because my pick will lose.
.47 is one of the hardest numbers to beat, period, for an NFL football game. A lot of combinations that can fall 47. You decide. Of course, you're getting great two-way action. That's what you want as the book. You don't have to move the number. Right. Biggest game of the year is the easiest game to book in the world.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Super Bowl is set in Vegas. We get a rematch from just a few years ago.
The only consistency in the playoffs has been Travis Kelce.
Brock Purdy, back-to-back weeks throwing one touchdown pass, right? He can't win MVP with one touchdown pass. I hate the Chiefs, but I bet on them.
This is going to be a game that is played inside a field goal now from a spread perspective.
All that matters is there's one game left, the big game.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Scoring 19.7 points per game, 13.1 rebounds, and 8.2 assists. How can a center that is top 50 in scoring, first in rebounding, 7th in assists, and 8th in field goal percentage not make the All-Star team? That is such a huge snub for Domantas Sabonis.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
0 points scored in the fourth quarter of that Falcons Super Bowl, and the Niners were shut out.
Yep.
So in the two biggest games of the two Super Bowls, one as a coordinator, one as a head coach, he hasn't scored a single point in the fourth quarter. And I tell you what, if they don't, on Sunday, they're not winning the game, bro.
Exactly.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today. Our 4-hour Fantasy Sports Today show is coming to an end. I'll be hosting the next 6 hours. No, I'm just kidding. I'm done. I'm done in like 2 minutes. We're all finished here. Davis, Joe, Craig, as we wrap it up, let's give our final predictions. We got 2 minutes left here on the show. Davis, break it down. Super Bowl. What's the outcome later tonight?
Chiefs 21, 49ers 17. Kyle Shanahan calls a disaster punt. Disaster punt in the fourth quarter. It's gonna be 4th and 3 from the Chiefs' 48-yard line. He's gonna call a punt, and he's not gonna get the ball back. The Chiefs are just gonna hang on to the ball. They're gonna Mahomes is gonna kneel. He's gonna go over his rushing attempts, and Mahomes will be presented with the Super Bowl MVP trophy.
And which score did you say? Because I got a different score up here. Give it to me again.
21-17.
Okay, 24-20 it's set up here. So you changed your mind, or you got two?
Changing his
I
mind.
changed it.
The evolution.
Right,
there you go.
All right, Joe,
for me,
what do you got?
I got it. It's going to make everybody miserable because it's going to be barely over, but it's going to be a Chiefs victory because that's what happens. All this good analysis for 2 weeks, and you throw it all out the window and you light it on fire. 28-20 Chiefs. Big moment. Travis Kelce, long touchdown catch and run. Much to everybody's happiness. So it's going to be a love story, baby. Just say yes to Patrick Mahomes being MVP. So there you have it. Sorry, everybody. For those of you who don't like that narrative, it's going to be an annoying post game for you. But I think it's going to be the Chiefs, and I think it's going to be like every Super Bowl, just a little bit annoying in terms of what it ends up being at the end. Craig?
All right. I'll take the 49ers. 31-25. I actually like the over in this game. Maybe that surprises some people, but I mean, these two offenses, I know the Chiefs don't play that hot anymore, but I don't know. I got this game going over. Big moment for Debo. I agree with Davis. No matter what happens in this game, I think Debo's going to be a part of it. I got Brock Purdy winning the MVP. Guys, enjoy the Super Bowl. That'll do it for the show. For Matt Stryker, Joe Pisapia, Davis Maddock, our producer Tommy Reynolds, I'm Craig Mish. Pro Football coming up next for the next 6 hours. Have a great Super Bowl, everyone.